All right. Okay. So what you can expect from today's webinar is primarily let us just get acquainted with what the current problem is, right, on the web. Why exactly there was a need for a PWA, right, and how it came into existence. What are the key characteristics that you can say, okay, yes, this is PWA or this is not PWA, and probably followed with the core components of the technical components of the PWA. Again, I would try to keep this session as general as possible. So no matter what role you play, maybe the business owner, the sales guy, a project manager, a developer, or even a creative team. So everyone will get something from this session. They will know, and I'll try to brief you with the jargons and the terminologies being used. Keep the session as general as possible. So in every role, you should be able to get something of it. Okay. So before we begin, let us understand what the problem is today, right? So, like probably many of us in the real world, as we facing the problem, the same problem is of the web, right? We are all suffering from obesity, and so is the web, right? So what we mean by obesity is like the size of the web page, right? The home page, probably if we take the some of the home pages bite-sized download for top 1,000 websites, right? So it's constantly growing. So probably in 2015 it was 1.9 MB, just under 2 MB. In 2016 it's around 2.2 MB, and then now in 2017 we have almost 2.5 MB plus is the average page size load. And that includes a lot of things like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, the fonts, the images, the video. The screen sizes are getting increased, so the quality of the images and videos are also increasing. There are almost 95 to 100 requests for one page to be loaded, right? So, and effectively, the newer trends in the web development, like single page applications, like so, where everything on the web page is loaded upfront and shown to the user when they click on it, so they have immediate access. But at the same time, this causes a effect where the overall page size is pretty high. At the same time, initially the screens were designed in such a way that they had multiple navigations, left, right, and on the top navigation bar, when they click, they will move to different page altogether, and it would be loaded at that point in time. But now it's more of a trend of a one single long page. So you just keep on scrolling vertically, and when you move from one tab to another, you'll probably just shift it to another location in the screen, which is probably scrolled down, right? So all these trends are causing the web page to be getting heavier and heavier. Okay, so what that effectively means, right? So the problem, okay, so the people are shifting from PCs to laptops, smartphone, but when we see the original web, it was never ready for the mobile form factor. It was not designed to be serving such small screens. In fact, with the time when the progress, when App Store was almost 6 years old, there was a famous quote in the Forbes that the Steve Jobs' biggest blunder became one of the Apple's greatest strength. So the App Store became so popular that the web wasn't sufficing them. The web wasn't giving a great experience. So people started publishing mobile apps. But now became the publisher's dilemma that what should we do? Should we develop for the web? Should we go optimize for web? Should we create a nice mobile app? Should we invest in native mobile applications? Right. So there were a lot of questions dimming, and it's still now the case, right? So the lot of things that we need to consider from various perspective is the matter of performance, right? The web does not give the great performance. That's why people were shifting to native mobile apps to provide a great user experience. But at the same time, the next factor to be considered is the cost, right? The native apps are very expensive and to build as well as to maintain. So apart from cost, the next factor to be considered is distribution, right? So native apps are does not have a friction-free thing. Just in web, the distribution is simple. Like everything is readily available. You just know the URL, you type the URL, and you are in. But when it comes to mobile app, you need to go to App Store, you need to search for the app, download the huge application, right? That causes a lot of friction. In fact, the stats says that 74% of the potential customers do not reach the native apps installation. So that installation part is the biggest friction. And even beyond that, the bigger question is retention, right? 80% of the users who download the app fail to become active users. And even if they download the app, they probably stop using the app after a couple of days. Right? So the effective result is people are now, have the question that, should they again invest in mobile apps, or they come back to the web. Again, a lot of questions were thinking like they come to back to web, but yes, this time it's with a twist. Okay. So the other thing we need to consider is that the web is becoming powerful every day, and even on the mobile devices. Mobile devices that we use today are probably using 4 GB RAMs. They are using octa-core processors. The browser standards have been improving day by day, and that gives a lot of power to the user, right? So the current state is that everyone wants to develop or deliver best user experience, right? Irrespective of what platform the user is on, irrespective of what network the user is on. And as we've discussed earlier, the native apps is expensive. No doubt if it's a good solution for exclusive experience, but they're still expensive. But in either case, the responsive websites are always built, right? So even if you have a native mobile app, that would not prohibit you from building a responsive website. So if your responsive website is always being built, then why don't we enhance that application further, right? Why don't we create some kind of responsive app that would give you that experience of a mobile application itself, right? So people want to build application all at once, right? So with one source code or one probably development mechanism, you deploy to all platforms, right? May it be web, may it be desktop, may it be mobile app, iPhone, Android. It would be magical, isn't it? Right? So the question is it possible, right? So the a short and sweet answer is yes. The use of the mobile web standards and the amazing tools that are available today can deliver great user experience. The W3 standards are maturing. They're enabling more and more native functionalities right within the browser itself. Right. So if you see nowadays, even if you use a web browser, people are able to create geo-aware applications. Your Google Maps on the web can still know where you are and provide you great directions from the point you are in. The lot of web applications are able to capture camera. They are allowed to do video streaming to the extent that they also allow you to do real-time chat right from within the browser without the need for downloading any plugin or softwares. Right. So that's the standard of the web has been evolved and matured into. And bottom line is everyone wants to deliver great experience at the same time having the reach of the web, right? So initially when we saw that the native app delivers those experience, but it has a friction of download, a huge file to be downloaded from the app store, again in the governed and control mechanism. So why don't we break those barriers where we can reach every user on the web and as well as deliver the great user experience, right? So you don't want to go to the complex app store permissions, and you don't want to have the issues to be wait till the next bug cycle is released, wait for another release to be approved by the app store and then reaching the user. But like on the web, we want to provide instant fixes, right? Instant releases to the user every now and then. Okay. So what we can do is let's tackle the mobile form factor first, right? So how do we achieve that, right? So what are the things that we need to target? Definitely, the first thing is fix the obesity, right? So we need to exercise. That's the same reason PWA also needs to have a slimmed down version of the web, have a very small initial payload, right? How the form factor can support from mobile to laptops to desktops to tablets, right? The form factor supporting is important. Stop to please. Right? And most important thing, we need to take care of the flaky connection, right? Even if the user is an offline, no one wants to see the dinosaur out there, right? So if you see at the bottom, we know that okay, there is a dinosaur of Google which is always there when you're offline, but we don't want to see that, right? So how we can take the advantage of the powerful end users compute which is available, and at the same time avoid the latency to give the fast user experience. So this is how you want to tackle the mobile form factor first. Okay. So how do we start? Okay, so let's start with giving a great user experience, right? But that user experience is based on what the user is, right? What we know from the user. We know that the user is coming from Chrome. We know that the user is coming from an old IE desktop or from the latest Chrome browser on the mobile, right? So accordingly, we can either progressively enhance his experience or gracefully degrade the functionality within the application. So the user is not affected, but at every time, irrespective of the platform connectivity, he achieves a uniform or seamless experience. Okay. So that brings us to the jargon PWA. And in simplest words, if you want, everyone wants to say that, okay, what is PWA? So it is radically improving the user's web experience. So you need to improve the web experience by miles, right? And if you go by the definition, it's more like the web apps are experience which combines the best of the web and the best of the apps. It is best of both the worlds. The user is allowed to do a visit from the tab, from the browser tab, without even need to install the application. The app quickly loads and it gives all the rich experiences and engaging experience like push notification, app icon on the home screen, which is usually missing on the app, and having a full screen experience, right? So these are the key features, right? From the web, best of the app, no installation required, loads quickly, supports push notification, enables home screen landing icon, and a full screen user experience. Yep. So progressive web apps are blurring the lines between the app and the mobile web app. Okay. The next, we come to the key characteristics of the PWA, right? So, what PWA needs to be? The very first thing, they need to be fast, reliable, and engaging, right? So, when we mean fast, right, they should load instantly. When we talk about reliable, they should be always available. You don't want to see the dinosaur anymore, right? You, irrespective of what your network is, whether it's flaky, offline, you want to see something instantly, and at the same time engaging, right? So the user should be engaged enough to view various intimations. So push notifications wherever you have some relieving offer, why don't we send a push notification to the user? So those are the key characteristics. And apart from that, the other thing that we discuss is progressive, right? So we know what the user is, what the user's device is capable of doing. So accordingly, let's progressively enhance the experience or probably gracefully degrade. Discoverability, hence it should be easily discoverable, right? The search engine is the biggest thing that happens for the web, and gratefully PWA are searchable, they are indexable, and hence easily discovered, unlike the mobile applications which have a lot of app store optimization, a lot of issues with the discoverability, right? And most important thing, they are linkable. Just like anything on the web, when you click on one link, you land on another page, right? Same way, even the web apps are linkable, right? By definition itself. They are responsive. They fit to every form factor, every screen size. So depending upon what the screen size is, the fluid layouts adjusts itself to various device screen sizes and resolution and gives you a seamless experience. And it is very much app-like, right? That's what people want. So they want a full screen experience. They want that the scroll should be smooth enough. It should behave like native app. It should allow device capabilities to be rendered like camera, GPS, locations. Everything should be easily accessible from within the web itself. Another important thing is connectivity independence, right? So irrespective if the user is coming for the first time, okay, so you cache things. If he is visiting again, so why do we load everything again? Let's load it from the cache, right? So that's again, we'll come to this again in detail when we talk about service workers. It should be re-engageable, right? So we should be able to reach users, not that user is polling for any new information. Whenever there's some new information coming in, push the information to the user. And most important, it does not require the user should be opening should have a website open, right? Even if the website is not open, not in any tab, not even if the user's browser is not open, like even if the user has Chrome which is closed, he would still get the push notification coming from your site that a new offer is available. When he clicks on that offer, on the push notification, your website loads, your PWA is loading, showing him the details of the offer, and is quick and buy, right? Wouldn't it be magical to have something like this right on your web, right? So today it's possible, right? Again, it's installable. So installable means just like your mobile app, when you go on the app store, when you click on it, it will have one icon on your home screen, right, where you can click and instantly load. No need to type the entire URL, right? The same experience is available from the PWA. When you have a PWA, you can add it to your home screen, and once it's available, it will have the same sweet icon on your home screen. Clicking on it will directly load the application. No need to enter the URL in the browser. It's always fresh. It gets the latest information always, right? Just like if you have explored any of the application like Google News, right? So if you open Google News or Google Now, right, you don't need to go and pull for a new request. You don't need to check, okay, what's the new score, latest score of the match. It will always have the latest score of the match available right within the app the moment you load, right? So it always syncs. It is always fresh. It is secure. You can trust it. Everything is over HTTPS. So those are the characteristics. Again, low friction barrier. You don't have to download a huge bulk. It's quick. It uses the same old web technologies that we are always used to and aware of: HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. That's all we need to know. It's fast, uh, and because it takes care of your caching, it's instantly loading. So even if there is no network, you can see something on the screen, thanks to the service workers again. And it has a shiny new feature because there are a lot of new features coming in and rolling out in quick successions due to the standardization of the W3C standard as well as the modernization of the browsers. Right. So these are the key characteristics. So before I proceed, let me just take a quick pause and see if there are any questions. All right, nothing so far, so we can probably proceed. Okay. So, some facts from the industry. We already discussed about the usage friction. So, a study shows that on an average, the app loses 20% of the user at every friction point. So, every screen from one screen to another, probably, clicking on one link when he goes to another, when he has to fill a form or click on another download button and wait for the next loading screen to disappear and come for the next screen, he has to tap the next icon again. So every usage friction is causing 20% loss. So overall, there are almost 74% chances that the user would probably not be your active user if you don't have a smooth experience, right? The usage frequency again. So 80% of the smartphone users spends their time in only top 3 or 5 applications. So irrespective of their apps being published every day, right? People probably have more than 25 apps installed on their devices beyond the apps that come directly on their device inbuilt. But at the same time, if we compare, probably user visits 100 plus websites as compared to only 3 apps using on everyday basis, right? At the same time, when we talk of version fragmentation, right, we know that on desktop browser, there are huge fragmentation, like when it comes to Chrome, when it comes to IE, Opera, a lot of browsers in market. But that is nothing when we compare to the same fragmentation of the native apps on platforms like Android, right? I mean, the fragmentation goes in thousands. Okay. So, right, so when we come to it, we can build PWAs today, and a lot of people are already building them with great success. Okay. So the biggest example, probably when it comes to PWA, the first thing that comes to everyone's mind is Flipkart Lite. So Flipkart Lite discontinued a lot of other normal common websites or the responsive websites for their mobile and directly lands user to this clean looking app, which is Flipkart Lite. It has a lot of capabilities, offline support. It caches a lot of browser user responses, searches, and what the result was, they had almost 3x more time spent on the site. There were engagement or re-engagement rates for 40% higher. They had 70% greater conversions on the same app by just clicking on the home screen. They can land the app, and most importantly, they reduce 3x data usage, right, from their actual server. So if we look at that, right, so it is not just delivering great user experience from the client side, but it effectively reduces the load one third, right? So from the server, every web page, HTML, CSS that needs to be sent across, it is reduced by one third. So now only the key data needs to be fetched or be sent to the user, and not the overheads of which is 3x. At the same time, the response is reduced from 3.5 minutes for the complete load to 70 seconds. That again has a 3x growth in terms of revenue and every other conversion rates. And Flipkart Lite is not the only one. There are tons and tons of users to follow. There is housing.com and a lot more. Okay. So that's a quick time check. All right. So we are at halfway mark. So this probably, at least convinces you that, yeah, it makes sense to work with PWA, right? We need to have probably build PWA, at least explore it for some of the use cases that we want. Right? So now coming to a bit technical aspect, like what needs to be done or what should be available for a PWA. So importantly, it makes use of the most modern web tools and APIs. Right? And what are those? So the first thing is comes the shell architecture. So the most important thing, the way traditional websites used to work, whereas the PWA works, is slightly different in terms of the shell architecture. So probably, if we relate it to our real world example, is if you have a form, right, a form of country on a page, right? So what we do, we keep a blank page of name, user, select country, select state, and submit, right? So if that's the only thing on the web page, right, you load that form instantaneously, and probably in the background you'll probably have one http request called, generally called as ajax request, which will then pull in all the list of countries, and within each country the list of states, right? So those are pulled separately, so the form is instantly available, and then the data is being pushed in, right? But that is applicable just for the form. If you look at the entire website, it's not the same. But what the same concept is now pushed to mobile app using something called a shell app, right? The shell app is something that the user instantaneously sees, right? He probably does not see any data in it, but he knows that, okay, there is a huge navigation at the top, a hamburger icon, there is some placeholder icon in the list there where you'll see something. When you click on the app shell, it will open, it will show you the possible options in the navigation menu, because that navigation does not usually change. And then only when they click on the index, the data is loaded, and then it replaces the square empty boxes, right? So if you see a lot of the modern apps today, right, if you open LinkedIn, right, even if there is nothing, when you open LinkedIn, you at least see some empty boxes. You always see that, okay, there is a navigation which is always visible, there is some chat bar on the left, there is some icons on the left, and the right center, they will show you some placeholders, rectangle boxes, even if there is no data. And meanwhile, that will show you some loader spinner that showing that, okay, the data is coming in, and as soon as the data is available, those empty boxes are filled in, right? So that's the key differentiator between a normal application and a web application, or a progressive web application that has a shell architecture. And the best part is this shell is loaded just once, right? So as soon as you load it for the first time, the next time it will save everything locally on the device, user's machine or a mobile. And as soon as he visits the app website again, it would load the cache, load the shell app directly from the web, so there is no wait time. Because usual stat shows that if any website takes more than 3 seconds to load or to show anything to the user, there is probably 50% or 54% chances that the user would simply discontinue and disengage and close the app and move ahead, right? You don't want that. Show him something so he knows that, okay, the next thing is coming soon, right? So that's the key differentiator out here. Okay. And first step towards technically building the application is something known as app manifest. Okay, this is nothing, though no magic. It's a simple JSON file which will store most of the key information, like what is the start URL, right? That needs to be loaded. This start URL should always be available, even if it's online or offline. So that's will be the URL of the shell application. So they know that we have to start from this URL, load everything, and available here. Right? It defines the look and feel. What is a theme? What is a color? You are able to change the status bar of your mobile home screen. You know what the icons are. You can also distinguish between, okay, on Android I want to show these icons, on iOS we want to show these icons. Probably there is some platform specific things where iOS app icons are round corner, whereas on Android they are not. So those are, those minor platform specific tweaking also can be done and made available via this simple JSON file, where you show him everything: what are the icons, colors, sizes, whether the app should be full screen or not, what should be the push notification options. So all those key factors are readily available, and again in a platform specific way. This is a standard approach. Even in the past, there were cases where you can provide your in the HTML header, you can provide a manifest file which will allow the user to add icons, so that whenever they add to the home screen, that's always there. So, but it just now that instead of putting this on the web head section of the HTML, you create a separate file which is manifest.json, which has everything. So if you see at the bottom link, the W3C GitHub manifest page shows the complete standard and what all information can go in out here. Okay, let me check. Any questions? Okay. All right, Harvinder, nice question. I'll come to it towards the end. Yeah. So again, it is very similar to cache. Just like in cache, we have where we can, whenever there is a change in cache, you dump the existing cache and load the cache again. The same is with the app shell. So suppose if there is a navigation change or change in the logo or anything in the change, the every app shell will have a version number, and that newer version number will indicate to the browser to dump what is there and load the newer shell. Okay. So the next thing is service workers. I mean, this is where the magic begins, right? So this is probably the one of the most important element of any PWA, right? So service worker is simply a script that runs in the browser, but most importantly, it runs in background, right? It is not running in the same web page where you actually see, right? It is something which is running in background, right? And this opens the door to a lot of new features. Like today, if you want to see something like that, you want to send push notification, right? So if the browser is closed, how will you receive push notification? Because there is some service worker which is running in background, not in the web page. It is running as a separate task. So hence you can send some notification to that, which will internally show the UI and bring the user back to the page. It is also capable of doing background sync. For the best example will be stock tickers, the scoreboards of matches, right? You don't need to go and refresh it every time. As soon as there is a change, the background sync job will periodically do those syncing. At the same time, you can take advantage of geofencing. So only when the user is within a specific geofence, send him specific information. So that would enable the background operation to constantly monitor the user's location and send it or update it on the server. Right. So these are the cool new features that you can take leverage of, and most importantly, it takes care of the flaky network, right? So when we take flaky network, it may be a weak network, it may be a very good Wi-Fi or 3G thing, or it may be completely offline. So the service worker will take care of all these scenarios. And most important thing, you are complete in control of what you need to do, right? For every file level, or at least file type level. So, in short, the service worker is nothing but a asynchronous background thread that takes control of the network request in every page. So it probably acts like a proxy. Okay. So this is the biggest breakthrough. So what it does, it intercepts every fetch operation. Right. Remember on the first slide when we talked of whenever a single web page is loaded, in background there are almost 95 to 100 requests made separately to bring in every font, every CSS, every JavaScript framework, and everything is brought separately, right? So now imagine a scenario where you can intercept every request and see, okay, is it a HTML file? Okay, get it. Is it a CSS? Okay, I don't change the CSS quite often, so don't bring it from the web, take it from the offline. Okay, first take it from the cache. Image, probably, yeah, the header image I change it every time. So even if there is something on the cache available, don't use the cache image, but get the fresh copy from the net, right? So that's the kind of control it gives you, right? It will allow you to intercept all the push notifications and determine that, okay, is this push notification for the user to show something? Okay, yes. So probably there is a offer. right? So show the push notification to the user, allow the user to click and open the offer. Is this push notification just a data update? Oh yes, your probably your score has changed, your balance in your account has changed. So there is no need to show the UI to the user, but just update the data. So that's possible. So again, if you want to do that periodically, do that sync, enable. So what is this? Effectively, it gives you the complete offline capabilities. It gives you push notification. It gives you background syncing. Right? Those are the key highlights that service worker enables you. So the same thing is explained in a simple diagram that you can see. So you have a browser, you have a web server. So your request goes to the web server, and there is a web API which is always available. So now what the thing changes is there is a service worker which sits in between, okay, who acts like a proxy. Again, this service worker is within the device itself. It may be on your desktop or mobile, it resides on the client side. So any request that the browser makes, this service worker will intercept. It will do some logic and it will determine that okay, where does the data needs to come from? Okay, does it need to come from the server, or does it do I have readily available in the cache? Oh, that is not in the cache, let's go from the server, and it will bring this data immediately to the browser. Okay. So the next is the service worker also acts as a foundation for the push notification. So let's say you have some example.com, which is a server, right? So as soon as there is a service worker, there is a simple JavaScript function which is available. So which what it will say is okay, what it will do when the data is received. So suppose there is a you have a server and you want to update the user that your flight has been delayed. So that example.com will send a push notification to the subscribed endpoint. So again, this is not out of the blue, and this is not enforced. The user is prompted. So only if the user has enabled to accept push notification, he agrees to it, he will be subscribed to your endpoint. And as soon as he subscribed, the service worker is the first thing that will get that push notification event. From that event, they can get the JSON data, and from that data, they will know what the title is, what are the various options, do we need to do something. If yes, okay, then show the notification to the user. And at the bottom, you will see that okay, the flight has been delayed, and whatever it comes, and it will also show from which server it's coming. So this is a simplest thing that a push notification does, but it's magical. Those four lines can do a lot of wonders to the user. Okay. So now coming to just a bit of things where why you think that it is important, and something that you must know about service workers. So service workers will work only on HTTPS or localhost, right? So if there is anything else, you must have a HTTPS. You cannot run it on example.com, which is www or http colon example.com. It has to be HTTPS. So that brings in, because a lot of people are aware, security conscious, and the PWA wants to give the emphasis on, lay the emphasis on user security, user privacy. So they want to give assurance to the user that this website is secure. You can trust it, right? So that's the first thing. It has complete controls in the scope. You should be on the same origin, so you cannot do cross origin requests. Probably something that the technical folks must be aware of. It will not work in the private mode. So just like we do in Firefox incognito mode, or in Chrome, we'll open a private window. It will not work in that. It works. It needs to have a regular access to the windows. Uh, the main reason being, when you open a private worker, it will not enable any plugins. So any browser extension which is there won't be available. So same thing, the service worker is something that runs outside the browser, not exactly within the same page. So those are disabled. So that disables the entire functionality. Again, there is only one service worker active at a time. So you cannot have multiple service workers running. It supports, and it shipped built-in support for Firefox, Chrome, Opera, that probably covers more than 75 to 80% of the Chrome, the user browsers available today. They should be support progressively. So it is not that only if you have the complete support you will be showing everything or nothing. But what we do is progressive means every time you check what the feature is available on the device, and accordingly show him or don't show him certain features. It doesn't control the origin of the page on the first load itself. Okay, that's where the magic begins, right? So even the app shell funda works on this. So you cannot, it does not need to control that, okay, the first page has to come from server. It can come from local cache itself. It can run in a background, it runs in the separate thread, and most importantly, it does not have access to your DOM, right? So you cannot assume that, okay, as soon as there is some request, where the service worker will get it and it will directly update the home screen, right? Or probably whenever the score comes, the background sync is done, and hence, since I have the updated data, it will update your DOM or web page. Because, as mentioned earlier, service workers is runs as a separate thread, background thread outside from your browser. Hence, does not have access to your DOM element. So your tab must be closed for the service worker to die, right? But even if that case, it will still keep on sniffing for any push notifications. So it will stop intercepting your outgoing request, but there is still a service which is running in background. So again, there is a lot of support of Microsoft Edge which is coming in. Safari is probably considering it, but it's still not the case currently. So effectively, what we need to know is a PWA must be over HTTPS. It must have a valid manifest where all the required properties are filled in. It must have one service worker. It must define a start URL, which will know from what to load. It must have its own navigation and most probably or preferably be a shell application. But that's not again a mandatory. You can still have a regular web page and give it your own navigation, and it must be responsive to support different form factors. So just a quick thing, even after all this liberties or extravaganza feature that it provides, people still might say that, okay, I don't need push notification, probably I don't need no re-engagement. So still, is it important? Okay, so the answer would be still it is important, because there are probably more than 1 billion monthly mobile Chrome users in the world today, right? And if you see the acquisition cost, right, that's where every business user wants to know, right? How would they acquire new users? So the acquisition cost is the key differentiator. So a typical Android or iOS app, the acquisition cost is almost £4. So if you create an ad on any website, at the bottom of the click on which the user will click, and he will download your application and he will become your registered user. So the cost that every publisher or a business guy would spend is almost £4, €4, sorry. So that's the typical spend that he'll do to acquire just one user. Right? That's huge, humongous. And when you compare the same thing to a mobile web, you can just have spent a 0.335 cents and you can still get the same user on your mobile web. So, and when you give the same liberties or same features that you were able to give on a app, now the same thing is available on a mobile web at probably 1/10 the cost. Then why spend more, right? So that is again the key differentiator that you can do. So there are tons and tons of success stories. The few things we have already discussed: Flipkart. For Alibaba, there was almost 76% more web conversions as compared to the traditional web. They had 30% more active users across the Android, and only 14% more. Again, the difference is because iOS does not completely support PWA. So there are only few features that iOS supports, but still it gives a bit better experience, and hence it brings in a marginally more user, right? It almost has 4x interaction rate, right? The engagement for any business would mean a lot, right? So if you have 4x the more engagement, you have 4x the more chances to convert a user, and hence 4x more chances to earn more revenue, right? So that goes without saying for everything. Even for housing.com, they had more conversions, lesser bounce, because as we discussed earlier, right? So if the app takes more than 3 seconds to load, 53% of the user would close the app, right? But now, since it is light, fast wait, and the shell app appears immediately to the user, people will stay more. They won't, coming to the website, they won't close the website before it loads. So you have lesser bounce rate. You have 10% more session. The session time is almost 10% more, and 30% faster page loads. So there are a lot of other case studies which are available on pwastats.com. So you can view all of them out there. So all of this is great, right? But the question everyone would have in their mind is what about the support, right? So below are the browsers that technically support, no, their current version supports PWA. So right from Firefox to Opera to Edge to Chrome to Safari, I mean the desktop one, and a lot of these support. On iOS, it's not supported, but almost 45% of the US market smartphones is still iOS. Again, these numbers are contradicting, but still. So there are a lot of iOS users available. But even right now, Apple is considering PWA to be downgraded or to ported back to iOS itself. So there is no official timeline when the service workers will be supported on iOS, but the rumors are that it will be integrated soon. So Edge has all-in plans for to support PWA. In fact, they have gone to the extent that Bring crawls will have a higher, higher ranking on PWA sites. The sites, anything that have manifest will, directly become a native apps in Windows Store. So if you created a PWA and you host it on your Windows Store, you can just give the link and it would appear as a searchable, downloadable app store. So you just click on it and probably Slack, or even Wunderlist. Those are the few applications which are probably just developed as a PWA. You don't even need to package it for Windows Store. Just submit your URL to App Store, and when you search for Slack, you will download that entire app as a web app and available on your home screen for one click, running on your desktops as well. Okay. So again, it supports Windows Desktop, Windows Phone, Xbox, HoloLens, and Surface. So complete universal platform is available from Microsoft, which will support PWA in near future. Again, the bottom line is not everything works everywhere yet. Okay, but the experience is the key. PWA definitely gives much better experience to the end user. So every business user must consider it. Okay. So we still have a bit of time. Okay. So again, coming to a bit of conclusion, right? So any web product can become a progressive web app. They do not need to be have built in from that. The applications can hibernate. They can wake up on demand, which is very critical. There is no need for the browser to remain open. PWA can be launched directly from push notifications. You don't need to pay by the rule of closed market, so you don't need to publish your web app to the app store. At the same time, you can, right? So initially, remember we discussed that, okay, wouldn't it be magical where you can create a single code base, right, and deploy it on the web, deploy it on your mobile browser, which is quickly available, and as well as deploy it as a pure app which can be downloaded from the app store. Again, so PWA can be easily be molded with use of Cordova, Apache Cordova, which can be packaged as a pure hybrid application and then be distributed for App Store and Android stores as well. Right. So this is something that someone always wished for. One code base, deploy it everywhere, on desktop, on tablets, on mobile phone browser, as well as on the iOS and Android app stores. Right. So the user can click on a link and directly land on specific page. All of those are available, and it's a slimmed down version, right, which is having the great distribution of the model of the web. Okay, so hopefully you will still have the curiosity to build a PWA by now, and probably I managed to convince you a bit on developing it. These are the key resources probably which are available. The most important thing is developer.google.com web progressive web apps. There is a link for checklist. There is a directory. There is a PWA builder. There is a good course on Audacity. So that's titled Offline Web Application. So this is again a 4-week course which can easily you can go through, and it will cover all these things technically, how to implement it, and probably even we plan to, if there is a good response and people are curious again, we can have a following session on this again after a couple of weeks where we can actually build a progressive web app from scratch, deploy it to the server, feel it and see it on your mobile app and see how it works, right? So a live demo and a live thing, that would be again based on people's interest. So do follow up, do provide your feedback on this, and if you want to have a follow-up session, do let the training team know, and we'll definitely have the next session, which will be hands-on, primarily for the development and tech team. Okay. So again, the thing is, go build it. Again, so when I say go build it, the next question probably would definitely come back to us is, okay, how do we get started? Okay. So there are three approaches for PWAfying anything. So the three approaches would be: one, do it ground up, right? Like probably Alibaba did, like housing.com did. They created something from scratch. Okay, but at the same time, you may not throw all your dice or all your eggs in one basket. You probably just do a simple version, right, which probably caters to only one thing. Probably just let the shell app thing work, and let's reduce the load time so user lands on the page quickly. So that would be a simple version of the web application. Apart from that, you can also skip everything and just implement one feature. Probably you just want push notifications, right? You don't want anything else. So you can still do that and achieve that. So it can be all in simple or one feature. The choice is yours. It's pretty simple. Probably in a couple of days you can add one single feature to your application that would be push notifications, and that more or less every manager or every project manager will be able to convince their clients to add push notification to your existing web app. Okay, so these are again the three cases that is done. The Conga.com did a complete ground up approach, right, where they had almost 92% less data loaded at the initial load, and 82% less data for the subsequent transactions. Air Berlin did a simple approach where they primarily target just the initial load time. They wanted that to make it faster, so just created a shell app and pushed it off thing. The weather company, which is again a IBM business, did the small feature where probably since the weather, it's as the name indicates, they always need to be engaging to the user. They should be just able to deliver push notification. So they just rolled out push notification feature, and they almost had 1 million opt-in for the first 3 months. So within the first 3 months, almost more than 1 million users agreed to accept push notification and to be receiving engaging comments from their server, right? That's a huge thing. Okay, probably that's all I had for this session. So I'd love to hear from you. Any questions, please throw it on the question window. So please repeat the what the question was. Okay, because I'm not sure which question you referred to. uh, Again, we can see what the persons are typing. I'm not sure. Yeah, thanks, Arvinder, for the air horner. So there are great example available for the PWA. So you can just check out airhorner.com, air horner, right? So if you load it from your mobile browser right now, you will see one probably red button. I don't remember, but that's one button. As soon as you click on it, it will blow a horn, and the magic is just turn off your Wi-Fi and your data plan and load that air horner once again, and you will be still able to view that. You should be able to play the sound, and you still should be able to use this completely offline as well. So that's the a glimpse of PWA that it starts with. Probably with almost 40 lines of code, they have achieved this complete application. Again, yep, Ionic is there, which will help you to build PWA. So we can, if the people are interested, we can have the next session how we can build PWA using Ionic or even Angular 2 for that matter. Okay. So Purthvi says, please explain service worker, the traditional diagram. Okay. So it's pretty simple. This is how your, when you talk about traditional way, okay. So yeah. So traditional way is basically you have your browser, okay, that makes a request from the your mobile app or desktop client, which reaches the server. Okay, this server may be your it may be the first level of proxy. It may be a web server. Okay, then based on the request, it would probably, if there are some static content like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, it would be returned straight away to the browser. If it wants certain data, it would internally call certain web API, which will then connect to your database, find what the data is, and return it to the server, which is then returned back to the browser. Okay, but as soon as you move the step ahead, okay, the PWA, your service worker will act as your proxy, right? So this service worker again resides on your device, but it will act as your proxy. Here you have complete control on what you want to do. For us each, for example, if you just say your home .jpg, right? So if you know that your home .jpg changes every day, so you can say, okay, you can define policies. Policies can be network first, right? So first check it from the network. If it's available, use the network image, or if the network is not available, then use it from the cached image if it's available. Or you probably can say cache first. So what it happens, it will first check if it's available on your local device. If it's available on your local cache, it will serve instantaneously. Only if it's not available locally, it will fetch it from the server. So it can be network first, it can be cache first. There are few things that you don't want to cache, right? For example, the scores, you never want to show them the old thing, anything from the cache. So for them you can give network only policies. So when you give network only, it will always fetch this data only from the network and never from the cache. So those are the kind of policies that you can lay in service workers to leverage those things faster. Okay, hope I answered your question. Okay, yeah, welcome. Yep. Any further questions? Probably we completed in nick of a time despite being some audio lags and stuff out there. Okay, we still have a few minutes, so please feel to add more questions in the question window.